Alright, good evening. So, I want to tie a fly tonight. I'm not sure how it's going to turn out. So, the scenario that that I am giving myself, is that I have gone fly fishing. Uh, like, I pulled up in the car, got out to go fish. I got there and had the rod and line, but I did not have a fly. So, um, I actually went the other day. I wasn't going fishing, but I was going to scout out a place. And I had the idea to do this fly, so I started looking around for materials that I could just scavenge and make something out of. And here's what I found. So first off, right. I found one of these guys. Get these at any fishing tackle place. I don't even know what you really call these, but they're kind of a quick leader. I guess they're a bit of fishing line pre-tied to a bait hook, and you attach this to your leader, and it just makes it quick so you can change out baits or change out the hook if it breaks off or whatever the case. You would hook this on your swivel. So that gives me a hook, and I will say that this hook still has some rust on it. It was pretty rusty when I found it, and I just took some sandpaper and cleaned it up a little bit. And I would, of course, if I used it, make sure that the point was sharp enough to actually grab on the fish. So that gives me a hook and a bit of line that I can use for some purpose on the fly. Secondly, I found this line. Now, I think that this stuff is maybe used for mending nets or something along those lines. I think that I found I would say about 10 feet of it. So um, it's kind of a twine that's twisted like rope. If you break it down, it's kind of a waxed finish or painted finish, and if you pull it apart, you can get uh, you can get 3 strands out of it. So I had a couple of ideas for that. One is to utilize the thicker strand as part of a body, and another is to utilize the small portion. So, and then thirdly was just a basic feather laying around. I found another feather, but I don't think for the idea that I have. I have this feather, which is a good feather. If I was making something that had wings of some kind, I could take this, I could section off one side and pair it to the other side, and I could make them be together. It's kind of hard to do on the feather, but you would pair them like that and have them taper back on the fly to make a kind of a false wing. So the idea is that I find whatever I find and I tie a fly with it. So I took this bobbin, this is a old sewing bobbin, and I split the green cord that I found into 3 individual pieces. And 2 of them I tied together. There's the knot there, which is going to make it, if I get to that point in the line, it makes it hard to go through this. I probably could load it onto a better bobbin that has more room. Anyway, maybe I'll figure that one out. So the idea is to utilize literally only the things that I find by scavenging to make the fly out of. Let's see if I can real quick find it. There we go. Okay, so I have a bobbin holder that has a larger gap. So I'm going to swap this out real quick. This is a good opportunity to show you how to load one of these guys. Let's see the difference between those two. There's quite a larger opening. And these two bobbin holders I actually don't really care for too much. They have a tendency on the end to break the line if you're using line that's not, if it's too fine. So you load it with these knobs there, and then you just run this line into the hole here. There are actually tools that help you load this in here. I've never really felt I needed them. If I'm using line that I didn't find on the beach / coast where all kinds of things blow into the bay, I would put the straw in my mouth and suck the thread through that line, through that tube, to get it where I need it. But I don't need to do that with this, so this will actually, I think, work much better than the other one will. So there we go. Okay, so there's my bobbin holder with my separated cordage that I'm going to use for thread. I'm quickly going to now remove this line from the hook. Just take a knife, hopefully. Hopefully I don't dull my knife too much. Okay, that's free. You can see kind of the rustiness that's there. If this hook was too rusty, I wouldn't bother, but it actually didn't look like this had ever even been used for real. So I'm just trying to cut off a clean cut on the end of my line. And I'm not going to use this loop, so I'll cut the loop off and just, okay. Now I've got just a short piece of fishing line. Now fishing line is something you can find in abundance on the coast, or where you're fishing. Someone will inevitably get hung up and break off a big chunk of their line that's kind of turned into a bird's nest. Alright, so I'll adjust my vise here. One thing you wouldn't probably have unless you happen to carry a vise with you is a vise to hold the hook. So I've got kind of an advantage there with that, but that's not what I'm going for. But I could pretty easily tie a fly. It's a little difficult, but tying a fly holding it in your hands is not terrible. That's the way they did it in the old days before they had vices, I guess. Alright, so it vibrates pretty good. Alright, this video is getting a little long-winded, so I'll get at it. Alright, so I've got my hook. Here's my thread. I'll go ahead and put a base down. So I think that I'm just going to tie in, well, we'll just talk about it as we go. This body, because of this line, I'm sure is going to build up very quickly. So I need to be careful about how much line I actually put on here. I did use my bow wax that I use whenever I dub line. It's bowstring wax for a bow and arrow setup when you need to make your string be not fuzzy. Alright, so I'll clean that off. We'll go ahead and take this back just a touch further. Just a few more turns. There. Okay. So I've now covered the hook. So my idea is to take this stuff, I'm going to take off one side of this and use that for tail material. Assuming this won't, yeah, there we go, perfect. Okay, well, not perfect material, but perfect pulling away of the feathers from that. Okay, This is just going to give it a little bit of fluff at the end. Now, when you are tying a fly and you're trying to reserve your materials as far as your threads, actually just a couple of turns will hold the material in place. And since I do have this waxed, I'm going to go ahead and do that because I don't want to build up too much on the end of here. Alright, that's good. Okay, I'm going to leave that just like that. Alright, I'm going to tie in my bit of fishing line. This is a little bulky, but what it's used for is pretty important. Okay, so there's like 3 turns there, and I'll go ahead and take some more off of this so I can use it the way I want to use it. I would like to have that feather be tied to this from the skinny side back, so I can take this, break that off there. Okay, like that. There. And I'll tie that piece in as well. I'll tie it in just the same way I did the fishing line. Alright, now I'm going to build up my body some. Nope, I'm going to leave it like that. I had another idea, but I think I'll save it for a different fly. I'm wondering when I'm going to come to my knot, and if it's going to be in a very not helpful location. Okay, not too bad. Now, I'm going to take my hackle pliers and hold my feather. This is not the greatest feather for what I'm using it for right now, but again, this is just in a pinch if I went to a place to fish and did not have my hooks with me. Make that a little tighter turn. What I'll be interested to do is to actually go and fish this. I better back that off. I need to make that go further. I'll make these turns a little wider, like that. Alright. Now, the idea with the fishing line is to go against the feather. Work your way through so you don't bind them down. But the idea is to cross. Is to cross the quill part of the feather and help hold it down. Now I've gone all the way to the front of the fly with that. Now again, this is not meant to be a beautiful fly. This is literally in a pinch when you don't have anything on you to make whatever you find turn into something that you can fish with. ahead and finish this. That's a big old fat head, but that's okay. So go right up here. So this is such a big head on this, a big eye of the hook. I have room to do my half hitch, so I'm going to do a loop here. Nope, I'll leave it like that. And go back a couple of turns, do my tie off. Again, that is a big old fat head on that fly, but it's because I'm using such heavy material. But the funny thing is, I think that it would do fine, do okay. Okay, so that's my tie off. Cut that off. There. Now, try to brush it a little bit, get some idea. Okay, so maybe I'll take some of this that's hanging down off the bottom here. I'll trim it out of the way. And I will take, oh, I should have done that earlier. Oh, that's fine. So, is it ugly? It is absolutely ugly. My saying typically is, sometimes you tie a fly and it comes out looking amazing. And sometimes you tie a fly and it looks like a bunch of crap tied to a hook. And this is closer to the second description. In a pinch, I could tie this onto my fly rod, cast it out, and probably, maybe, on a lucky day, catch a fish in a pinch. The steps are normal. The steps are what you would typically do to tie a fly. The water will make these feathers move around and do some things. If you wanted to, you could come in and trim all this back. It would have kind of a fuzzy body with that fishing line wrapped around it, kind of segmenting it, and you would still have the tail flipping back behind. So you can modify this to make it possibly work for you. So again, I am not saying that that is a pretty fly. I found materials, including the hook, line, feather, and fishing line also. I put a layer of thread on the hook. I tied in some feather parts for a tail. I tied in the fishing line and the feather to the back of the fly. I wrapped the feather around the hook and tied it off, wrapping it forward, and then I went the opposite way with the fishing line to hold it on. I tied off the head at the front, and I put a little bit of fingernail polish, which might be something you don't have, which could cause a problem. But if your wife or girlfriend is there, you may have that with you. So, or if you like to paint your fingernails, you might have it with you. So that is a fly in a pinch. I'll put it that way. So I hope you enjoy. It's kind of a long video, but I had some explaining and some other work to do with that. So enjoy. Try it out. Try to tie a fly. Use regular fishing line. Use a basic hook. Use sewing thread. Get some candle wax or crayons. Who knows? Well, crayon probably wouldn't be sticky enough. Use dental floss. It's waxed often and it'll hold pretty well. It's very strong. I've seen people use dental floss on bow strings to make things. So hold it with some pliers so you can get a better grip on the hook, and tie in your materials. Use vice grips. Anyway, some different ideas there. Maybe some ideas for future videos for me.